fulfillment, actually, it's a basic human need. And if you don't feel fulfilled, if you just feel like you're whiling your days away, you're not going to be healthy. You're not going to have energy. You're not going to have stamina. You're not going to have motivation.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Awaken Poho podcast with Claire Poho. So this is very exciting, guys, because while I have been uploading episodes previously, all the previous episodes were recordings of different chats with my friends and fellow coaches from my community. But today I am bringing you a podcast episode that had been specifically designed and recorded for this very specific podcast. I decided to start this podcast in February 2024 and recorded this first episode in early March. And it is today, the last day of July. And boy, oh boy, is it funny to me that, well, let's just say that the topic that we're going to talk about today could not be more relevant for me at this point in my life. So to kick things off, I decided to share my story of how I decided to fully lean in and surrender into trusting the universe. At some point last year, without really knowing what I was doing, I decided to live my very best life with no more compromising, no more settling, and no more operating out of negative energies of fear and lack and scarcity and doing and just acting because society tells me to act. I said, no, I'm not going to do this, and we'll see how that goes. So last year, I quit my job at the end of April, and I was determined to start my own business. I just knew, I felt it was the thing I needed to do. And what happened was that it wasn't flowing. Couldn't make any of it happen. I had no energy to do it. On the contrary, everything in me was trying to prevent me from doing it. It just didn't feel safe to start that business. So I saw it for what it was, and I said, I do not want to build anything from that place. I am not going to build a business from an energy of forcing myself and doing something that I have so much resistance to doing. When it doesn't feel good, it feels forced and it feels exhausting. So I decided not to do it. Naturally, fears came flooding in, telling me that it was completely insane to go on spending money on myself, living life, when I not only had no source of income, but also I had no idea when and how the next sum of money could possibly come in. And then I paused and I thought for a second, and then I decided to run a challenge on myself. I asked myself, how do I even know I can run out of money? Because it has never happened before, so how can I even know it's a real possibility? And if it does come to it, if I do run out of money, then what will happen then? So can I actually challenge myself to try to run out of money? And then lo and behold, I was visiting my friend Dan Blackman in Florida last October, and I found out that he had done something similar. And so I knew we just had to have a conversation about that. So let me introduce Dan to you a little bit. So Dan is trying to live his very best life, just like me, within the constraints of his own life situation. So you see, Dan is a single parent of two beautiful daughters who each face certain challenges that require healthcare and special considerations and special care on his end. So it would perhaps not be the best idea for him to attempt to live a freedom lifestyle of traveling the earth like I do. But he is doing his own version of what I am doing. And I thought it would be tremendously inspiring for all the parents, caretakers, and others who can't just roam the world freely without compromising their commitments and relationships to hear his story. So here comes Dan, who moved to Disneyland, and really hope you're going to enjoy this episode. Dan is very inspirational. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one. Hi, Dan. Hi, everybody.
What's up, Claire? What's up, everybody?
So fun to be here. Thank you for joining, Dan. So today, for the very first episode, I chose my very special friend, Dan Blackman, to join me in this conversation about choosing abundance. I don't know if the topic, the name I gave it, really stands for much for people, but basically I want to share my own story that I've been sort of wanting to talk about for a while. Recently, I've just been sharing it in containers. Like I'm currently in a mystery school. And when I shared my story, so many people just messaged me and resonated with me to the point that I decided to start a support group for people, because so many people actually find themselves in a similar place or feel inspired to sort of follow that path. Dan is trying to do the same thing, like the freedom lifestyle, and just follow his pleasure and just inviting adventure. And for me, that looks a lot like travel and living in the moment. So Dan has 2 children. So obviously it's a little bit more difficult to, travel the world or do something like that when you have to take care of 2 kids, right? So I have so much respect for that. So that's why I brought Dan in. First, I just want to give Dan a chance to introduce himself and just say hi.
Hi. That was great. Yeah, I've watched your travel blogs and stuff on Facebook since we got to meet each other in the community that we were in. Thanks for the intro and the connection piece. That's certainly something that I've noticed and wanted. I have that sort of vibe, desire to travel the wanderlust spirit, and you can have that as a parent. Yeah, so it's different with kids. It's all about living in the moment at some point and overcoming your lack, which are 2 things that I've been working on. You mentioned you were working on something for about a year. I've been working on that same thing for a couple of years since my divorce, a single parent with kids. So, even less time and yet more opportunities somehow. So leaning in and finding those things and finding inspiration and pulling in inspiration from others, that's definitely where we connected and have that conversation.
Beautiful. Yeah, I really admire you for that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for showing up. So today I want to talk about my decision last year to quit my job, and which, paid me quite well. And I was in a kind of cozy situation. I was in Switzerland. I wasn't really working too hard. I was living in a paradise place. I was, skiing every day off in like one of the best ski resorts in the world in Switzerland. For people who haven't been following me around, the Toblerone chocolate, the mountain on the logo. It's called the Matterhorn, and it's in Zermatt, Switzerland. That's where I live. I got to see the mountain like every day. It's this iconic mountain that people travel from the other side of the world and pay insane amounts of money to get on trains in Switzerland just to see this mountain. And I was like skiing with views of that mountain every day. It was really not bad. But I just honestly, I felt it was just soul sucking. I felt so exhausted, but ironically, I was doing nothing. 5 days a week, I was at work and I was doing nothing. I was working in a shop. Barely anybody walked in the shop most days. So I was just like standing around or sitting around, that I couldn't really get deep into doing anything, because in case somebody did enter, it was just like, oh, sorry, like I forgot, like I'm in my own universe, and like now who are you? And I need to take care of you. So like I couldn't also do that either, but it's just like that sort of doing nothing all day, being frustrated, resentful, unfulfilled. Unfulfillment diseases, that's a real thing. Like that's a real thing. And I think most of our population unfortunately suffers from unfulfillment diseases. Obviously, there's a pyramid of needs. First, we need to get our basic physical needs covered. And if you don't, like you don't really care about fulfillment. But once you do, fulfillment actually, it's a basic human need. And if you don't feel fulfilled, if you just feel like you're whiling your days away, you're not going to be healthy. You're not going to have energy. You're not going to have stamina. You're not going to have motivation. And so I was not feeling well at all. And I had already known, I kind of always knew that I was not the right person to be employed. I've tried and it just doesn't really work with me. My soul just has this desire for freedom and self-expression and, in my authentic way. And then you're in a company, you can't really express yourself authentically. You need to express yourself in a way that's acceptable within a company, and you need to represent the company in front of customers or clients or your bosses or whatever. And you don't have freedom, right? You need to be there at a certain time. You need to wear certain clothes, and you need to speak in a certain way. Respect authorities, even if you don't agree with the people and you don't think that what they're doing is right or ethical or whatever. So it just wasn't really my thing. But long story short, I knew I wanted to start my own business, but like it wasn't really time yet. I just couldn't. Like I wasn't feeling it. I didn't know how. Mostly I wasn't ready emotionally to really put myself out there and start creating my own personal brand. What I'm doing, it's kind of edgy. Like you go out there and you talk about emotions and difficult emotions, trauma, end up talking about past life stuff, and people are like, what are you talking about? You crazy? And I went to all these fancy schools, and my rational brain was like, I can't possibly now show all these smart, rational, educated people that I've now got crazy and I've like become a witch or whatever and like believe in astrology. Like, what are they gonna think about me, right? I couldn't possibly do that. I wasn't ready. Everything in me was like, that isn't safe. Don't even think about it. Just forget it, right? Part of me really wanted to do this, and I see the need for this work, emotional health and fulfillment. All these things, they get stored in our body. We don't feel well. We have negative thought patterns, and then we end up self-sabotaging. It just ruins our physical health, right? It's so important. I believe that stress is number one thing that kills people. If you're unwell, chances are you're not going to be healthy. So anyway, I was like, okay, I want to start my own business. And then I finally quit my job in April, and I was like, that's it. I want to start my business. And it just wasn't happening. I wanted to, and then I started beating myself up. When I was working, I realized that I didn't have the time. I didn't have the energy mainly. Well, I could have had the time. I could have probably worked on that at work, but I just couldn't. I just couldn't find it in myself. My energy was so drained by being closed in a shop with people I didn't like, whose energy like felt very disturbing to me, doing things I didn't resonate with. I didn't feel fulfilled. I kind of felt like I was wasting my potential and wasting my time. Living with people that sort of didn't energize me was taking more energy that it was giving me. And I realized all these interactions, having to go places, having to follow a schedule, and not having enough time for me, it's draining all my energy, even though I'm not really doing much. And so I don't have the motivation. Mentally, I'm drained. And I remembered a time when during COVID, everything went online. And I ended up in an empty apartment with no furniture, no people, and no place to go because it was COVID and everything was online. It was such a zen space for me. When I cleared out all the clutter and all the people and all the schedules and all the having to go places or having to do things in certain ways that would, correspond to the preferences of my parents I was staying with before at the beginning of COVID, for example, all of a sudden I had the most energy and inspiration and motivation in my entire life. I went running every single day and I was like breaking my own record. I just wanted to run for like 10 minutes and now I broke a record for like 10K. And then the next day I broke it again. And I came home and I was like dancing for an hour. And then I had all these ideas like I want to start this business and like all these things. It was crazy. I was like, okay, I want that again, right? And then I ended up being in the exact same apartment and I was like, it's going to be great. Like I have nothing in my schedule. It was the complete opposite. I had no energy, really fell into a depression for like a month or two. It was one of the darkest times of my life. I felt so heavy and I couldn't find joy for anything, honestly. Like nothing. I was just like void, darkness, heaviness, like molasses, like ugh. Eventually I realized I can't do it at this point. Like clearly I can't do it. I'm not gonna force. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. Like I just can't start my business. It's not flowing. Even if I was able to force myself and squeeze something out, I don't want to do it because first of all, it's not healthy, it's not sustainable because I would be forcing so much. But secondly, I don't even want to do that because I don't want to create anything from that place. I want the foundations to be beautiful and healthy. I want to put good energy into it because I believe that energy is super important, and whatever kind of energy we put into anything is what it's going to source. If I want to build a business from like kind of energy, like my clients are going to feel that and it's not going to feel nice. So eventually I just gave up on that idea. I was like, it's going to happen at some point, but right now it's not the time. And I started traveling and then like life started being amazing. And then it just like months went by and months went by. And I'm like, and everybody's like, what are you doing for work right now? Like, how are you earning money? I'm like, nothing. I've been living on my savings since April. And so right now, as we speak, it is February next year. And I've been living with my savings for quite a while. And it's been kind of scary, right? And there was a point, so that was actually already that summer last year when I decided to travel instead of sitting at home and working on my business. At that point, I was like, I deserve to treat myself. And no, I used to have such a difficult relationship to money and spending, and I would live out of that scarcity of like, I can't afford this. I should save money. I should save more money. And then I was like, no, like that's not it. I get to treat myself. I get to support myself in the ways I need and all that. And obviously it was so challenging because I was like, it's crazy. Like I'm not earning money. I can't keep on spending money if I'm not earning. Like that's simple mathematics, right? Like logical brain, like doesn't add up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And, but eventually I was like, okay, I want to play an experiment with myself. And this is, I'm finally getting into the core of what I was going to talk about today. Sorry for the long intro. I was like, okay, can I play a game with myself? I'm like the queen of saving because I've always saved my whole life because my parents are great at saving because my parents lived in communism for a good part of their lives. And in communism, you don't have anything. You didn't know if there was going to be meat in the shop at all this week. You didn't know if there's going to be anything in the shop at all. So you always had to save. You don't know what's coming tomorrow. So we'd better save things. And so I learned how to save and I learned that mentality. I need to save because I don't know what's coming. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I need to save. And I'm like, realistically, I know I'm very good at saving. And because of that, I've always been very careful with money. So as a result, I have never experienced running out of money in my life, right? Because I always had savings because I know the importance of that. And so I'm like, huh, how do I even know that running out of money is a real possibility? Because it never
Yeah.
happened. Like, I don't have any evidence of it. Like, maybe it's not even possible. So I was like, can I actually challenge myself and be like, Claire, I challenge you to run out of money. Like, can we do that? Is it possible? Right? And I was like, this is crazy, but let's play this game. And I was like, well, okay. And if I do run out of money, what's going to happen? Realistic, what's like the worst case scenario? Probably I'm going to either find a job or I'm going to like crash at somebody's place, stay with a friend, which I do a lot anyways, stay with my parents or take an online job or finally start my business or borrow money from my family or my friends. Like, I'll be fine. Realistically, can I challenge myself? So I've run that experiment and I mean, we can sequence into that how it followed later, but now I want to finally give the mic over to Dan and hear what he has to say and what his experience is.
Everything was the same. Like the same experiment, the same thing that I was doing post divorce with 2 kids. That was great. I can see why that was so inspirational when you tell that story and people who are doing the energetics work, because the energy behind it is like solving and attacking your lack problems, at least for me. It's like, where does my lack come from? I'm going to stare it right in the face and challenge it. Like, that is so juicy to do. To stare down that lack is the same thing I'm doing. I just spent the last of my 401k. I pulled it out the end of last year. So I am on the, spending wisely month by month. I know when my end date is, where I'm going to have to make the same set of decision choices with 2 kids. Um, and January met me with an appendicitis, so I have a giant hospital bill I can't pay. And February met me with my daughter has T1 type 1 diabetes, so I have another hospital bill I can't pay. And what sort of happened in that process is you learn to ask for help differently. You learn to not be fearful. I mean, you're staring at fear. Fear can't control you when you're staring at fear. It's just an opportunity for kind of radical growth. You take radical responsibility. I'm going to riff off your point about always being good at savings. You're using that as a skill to just kind of work on your lack. That's kind of what I've been doing, and finding abundance and serendipities, and the belief that you're okay sort of turns into things that show up that prove that you're okay. And then that trust kind of snowballs. Those are some of the things that come into mind without telling my whole story, which would take as long as you did.
I would actually love that. I think I have no doubt that the story is inspirational, but for a lot of people who may be listening, like, well, I have kids or I'm older or like I'm not a traveler, maybe they can't relate to me, but maybe they could relate to you, right? So I would actually love for you to share your story because I think, I can be inspirational to certain people and certain people be like, there's no way I can relate to any of what you just said, but maybe they could relate to you. So I think you can be inspirational to so many other people that maybe I don't inspire. They're like, she's crazy, right? Like she's out there.
Okay. So divorce, single dad 7 years ago, doing all the mindset work, trying to figure out what I'm going to do was always like a push, push, push. And it was always, how can you handle corporate while you're handling like lawyers and an ex-wife situation that wasn't pleasant and, trauma in your children that you love. And there isn't a lot of time for that cave and self-reflection. It's constantly working. And then COVID was sort of a blessing in disguise in a weird way, because it provided that same cave, that man in the mountain moment you were describing when you were skiing, and you're in that and there's all that beauty outside. My experience was similar because when COVID came, like I was commuting 3 hours back and forth each way,
Wow.
back like 3 hours worth of commuting a day, 8 hours worth of work, and like rushing home, rushing back to meet my daughter in time. She would get out of middle school and go over to after school care, and I had to get there by 6 o'clock and had to have her there by 8 in the morning. It's the usual American rat race, right? To make the income that I had to make to give half of it to my ex. And so you can imagine you're working for half of yourself for what you used to, and you're doing everything for your kids because I got primary custody because of what happened. So divorced dad with all of that, the bills coming in and all that kind of stuff was just overwhelming. And the urges to immediately, I'm going to go work harder. I'm going to go get another job somewhere else that pays more. I'm like, the wheels came off the bus. There was just, I had no more left to push. There was nothing else.
Feel
There
like
was
COVID did
nothing
that
there.
to a lot of people, right? It's like it's a blessing as disguise. Like I'm sure, like it happened to a lot of people, and they were like, "Fuck this! Like fuck this COVID, fuck this life situation. I'm done." But like it ended up being a blessing in disguise, right?
Yeah, COVID got rid of the 3-hour commute, and then that allowed some breathing space, which was really a wake-up call to, okay, who am I? You know, who was I? What's happening? Who am I?
Right.
And in that sort of exploration, it's like I'm a creative wanderlust traveling person who wasn't doing any of that. I was just surviving.
Yeah.
And that everyday, surviving is beautiful when you have kids. You share their joys as you're raising them, and you provide for them, and being a provider type, that definitely there's lots of joy to be found there. There's still, you're not living. You're still kind of survival mentality. And I think that's where there's some alignment here, is that shift from survival to living. Like we want to live on the inside. It doesn't matter what our situation is, whether we're single, we want connection, right? And you can have that with your kids and still feel like unfulfilled. I like that phrase that you used about unfulfillment disease. That definitely resonates. So from a manifesting standpoint, I remember one day looking out, I'd moved 2 different apartments to try to find a place that really fit where I was at, and it was overlooking the pool. So it had this nice, vibe to it when I could come home, and before COVID. And I would look out the window and there'd be a pool and there was a grill, and it started to feel like vacation. And these parts started stirring in me, like, what's it? How can I live on vacation while I'm actually doing all of this stuff, right? And then I was sitting down one day, and in that same apartment after COVID happened and I had more time, I was like, what if I can do this every day? How can I do this every day? Where can I do this every day? And I hatched this idea to move to Disney World. So I had to sue my ex-wife to do it. I had full custody and I had the rights to do it, but she wasn't going to let me do it unless there were, was another round of lawyers and everything involved. And at this point, I'm well into I'm doing this for me. It's like the F it zone. Like this is, my soul is declaring to itself what it needs. Am I going to listen to it or not? So, and can you follow that bravely or recklessly or both, right? Can you follow that and just step into what could be? And 3 years, 4 years later, because that was about a year before I actually was able to pull the trigger on everything. Once I made that decision, stuff started falling into place. Like I got the last apartment here. I can see the Magic Kingdom and the fireworks every night. The idea was my oldest daughter,
Oh my God, as you say it. Keep
it's a
talking.
failure to launch, and she has a little bit of Asperger's. She's a little bit on the spectrum. She's got some CPTSD from her mom, and I'll take responsibility in our relationship. The two of us didn't provide it, even with her mom in there, that was just a difficult way for her to be raised with her issues. But Disney provided a place she could walk, because she doesn't drive. She could walk, work there. And just like that apartment was the right place, except she was at mom's. And then later mom threw her out. So like then she got to move down here after I established my youngest daughter, who was just entering middle school. So I moved right at the cusp of middle school, 6th through 8th grade for her, and got her started. So she's got a place, the oldest daughter has a place, and I'm right where I need to be. That's like I don't know. Like you could write it down. I'm going to plan this and do a checklist of steps. That's not how it worked. It
Mhm.
was like, I am soulfully declaring that this is my future.
Mhm.
And I stepped into that and I was like, all right, what do I do next? And that was before I hit this work. And even after I got here and started feeling into that, there was a moment where I still hadn't challenged all of my darkness yet. Like I was still working until July of 21, is after we moved down here. I was still working, and then they lifted COVID, and then I had a decision to make at that point. Do I find another job down now that I've moved everyone down here? Do I find another job, or do I stare into this, can I run myself out of money conundrum? Like what would happen if? And I looked at it and I was like, my daughters need me to be 100% focused on them, and I have enough money to make it through the end of 24. So let's go. So I retired, semi-retired. Um, I got Cobra benefits, and now I'm buying stuff from the marketplace. But I mean, I've got bills on lifetime alimony. Thank you, South Carolina. So I still am paying her lifestyle with the rest of the 401k that was split in half from my lifestyle. And you can imagine what that might feel like on the inside.
Can you just provide some context what that means for all the non-Americans?
So for the non-Americans, imagine that you establish well, in a divorce situation, there's the give half, right? You split everything in half. One person gets half. Alimony is like the idea that the person who is the homemaker, and the way it works in South Carolina is the lower income earner gets to feed off the higher income earner for the rest of their life. So they basically, yeah, it's a lifetime financial death sentence.
Wow.
So if you're married and you move to South Carolina, be aware when you get divorced.
Thanks for the tip. Never moving to South Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just know the divorce laws just in case.
Oh.
So those were the elements in my experiment, which provided a lot of spiritual fuel for growth, right? Like staring at this abyss of, like I can earn my way out of it. I just wanted to do it on my terms with my energy. That wasn't from the victim mentality. That was the unwind for me, is the like, I'm a victim. This sucks. Thank you, South Carolina. Like you probably feel it in that. That is what I'm getting to unpack through this by staring at my zero. I'm like, everything that I earned up to this point was me, and I could spend all of it and still be me and still be okay and still move forward and still believe and find greater belief in myself, greater trust in my gifts are opening up from doing this spiritual work. And so my man in the cave moment is ongoing. Yeah, I will either go back to work the end of the year in corporate and I'll be a different person. So it won't impact me the same way. My daughter will be in high school by then, my youngest.
So are you saying you are gonna go back to corporate?
No, I said I would either do that or like that's my fallback option, because everybody needs a fallback option. Otherwise, you're an insane idiot, right? Like what are you doing? Like running off and tra la la. That's not what we're doing.
We are
healing ourselves and others. No, we're not. Like, I don't think you are, and I didn't hear it that way. And so I just resonate with your story. It's just from a different angle, and I love that so many of the things intertwine with outlook and expression and growth and desire to help others, and like that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, something I wanted to pick up on when you're staring at the pool from your window and you were like, could I live like that? Could my life be like a holiday? I just want to speak to that because I think I've worked part-time jobs in the past. When I was a student, for example, I was a hotel entertainer in Mallorca in like a 4-star hotel. And so like my job was to go around the pool, talk to people, make cocktails, take people to dance in the evening, eat hotel food, drink all the coffee I wanted all day long. Just literally my job was to have fun with people, right? So I would start my day laughing, pushing people into pools, being pushed into the pool and dancing and running around with a wig, all these things, right? And all the hotel guests are like, this is the best job in the world. This is amazing. And like, I was talking to my boss, colleagues, and they're like, this is not the real work. But this guy, he was like, it's not the real work. You're on holidays. Like you're constantly on holidays, but like, it's a great life. Like, and he's been doing it for years. Right. And so like, I'm like, oh, like you're living on holidays. Like you're not living in the real world. This is not right then. I'm just observing that belief. It's not right. You can't live on holidays all the time. Granted, there's ways that it's true. It's not healthy, but I think that's more like mentally, it's like, I can't live in a space where I just ignore what's happening in my life, right? It's like, oh, it's not happening. Like because like, sometimes when you're on holiday, there are problems in your life and you're like, I'm choosing not to deal with them right now because this week I'm on holidays and I'll deal with them next week. So like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, yeah, that's valid, but it's like, I can't live this well because that's not the real life. And like, that's not real. Don't even think about it because it's going to make you want things that are not real or that you can't have or that you shouldn't have because it's not real. Right. And so it's like that belief, I can't have that. Well, who says you can't have that? So we had this conversation with Dan actually recently about learning how to sit with the good stuff. Because like, so me and Dan are both coaches and and we help people go through difficult experiences. Mainly, that's what I would say we do. It's more on the healing side, but we're not healers. We're just helping people to heal themselves by really just presencing them, like sitting with them, and holding space for them. And that's, it's beautiful to just give somebody the space and support and encouragement to go through their own healings. Because like oftentimes,
Point at their healing, like, and just point to it, like, look at you healing, like, and
right,
take them kind of.
right, you just do that, like, and so it's like a lot of the work that we do is like there's something difficult coming up, and like what we do, we just want to escape from it, right? So like we just don't think about it. We're like, distract ourselves with all the different things, and we're like, no, it's fine, be happy, focus on that. And then we ignore the process, because it's so difficult to sit with something intense like fear or grief or rage or frustration or shame, right? We just don't want to experience it, so ignore it. But if you can sit with it, really just like, I'm going to sit with grief, or like, I'm going to sit with shame, or I'm going to sit with anger, eventually it goes away, right? Because you just experience the experience and then it moves away. The emotion wants to flow through you, and then you're on to the next experience and next, emotion, which can be joy and love and happiness or what have you, right? But you need to sit through the thing so they can complete and leave, and then you get onto the next experience. But so, like the conversation we were having recently, yes, like we're so trained now to sit with the difficult thing. It's not pleasant. We learn how to sit with the difficult emotions. But sometimes we don't even think about the fact that we also need to learn how to sit with the good stuff. I shouldn't feel that much, joy, or like it's not moral or ethical to feel joy because the person next to me is not feeling joy. So it's not ethical for me to feel joy. Or like there's work going on, but like there's always work going on in some place in the world. So like if you had that logic, is it not ethical for anybody to ever feel joy?
Yeah, that's yeah, I've been doing a lot of sitting with that too, the joy part. And what immediately happens after you learn to sit with sadness, which is easy, and anger, which is easy, and fear, which is easy, uh, disgust, all of that is just, it's easy to sit with because it's so present, it's everywhere. You have to train yourself to sit with joy. And there's always this talk, like, spirituality and stuff, that, joy is just ever present and it's everywhere. And but then when you look in your life, what are you noticing? Noticing a reflection of what's not right with your experience inside, without realizing that that you can just pull down joy. And when you start to, like, wow, that's too much. It's like touching a hot stove. It's like that's too much joy. I don't know what to do with that. And you keep practicing and opening up, and then you start noticing there's joy everywhere, like really, like everywhere, in the littlest things. And not like in the mindset way where you read the books where it says, go out and look at a butterfly and hold it, look at it. No, it's a beautiful butterfly. I mean, like, you pull in joy and you sit with the joy vibration, and then you notice the butterfly. It flips.
Right. My experience of traveling, it's exactly the same thing you're doing, choosing to move to Disney, going to Disney whenever you please, choosing the joy, choosing the enjoyment, choosing the
Yeah.
pleasure. I'm going to choose to do this because I can.
Not
I'm
me.
gonna
Why not here? Why not now?
Exactly, right? So I had a friend who had challenges with mental health. They ended up moving to China for some time. And you move to the other side of the world, nobody knows you. You disconnect from all your experiences you were having back home, or you're like going to university. It's so stressful and depressing. Emotionally allow yourself to have different experiences, see things through a different lens. And there's even something they call the tourist eye. When you live somewhere, you just go to work every day, you walk the same streets, see things in a mundane way, and you just don't even pay attention. You drive the same way every day, you take the subway, you do it on autopilot, you're not noticing anything. So you're just worrying about the things that are going to happen or that somebody said before you left, and you're not noticing anything. You're not expecting anything beautiful to be there. But then you're in a different country, walking around with this wonder in your eyes, and you're like, oh my God. And in China, everything is different. The plants are different, the architecture is different, the people are different, the smells are different. So you're walking around, you're like, right? You're constantly looking out for something interesting, something beautiful. You're seeing all these things because you're actually looking, right? And we're having this conversation, and she's like, I was there and I was alone, and there's like this beautiful bird, and like I'm in the city, so it's just like a random bird in like a city of 30 million people. But like this bird is so beautiful, and I'm having like this, oh my God, look at this beautiful bird. And then we're thinking, and she's like, well, realistically, if I was back home right now and there was a bird in the city, would I notice there's a bird? And if I noticed it, would I pay it any attention? And if I did, would I be like, oh my God, you're a beautiful bird, and have this amazing experience? You're talking about the butterfly, right? First, you need to be in that state and then the butterfly comes. Or maybe it was here, but you didn't see it, right? Maybe it's coming every
Yeah.
10 minutes, but you're not seeing it, right? So you need to be ready to see the butterfly, right?
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
I have a question for you.
Oh, please, question.
I'm wondering if you could give us a synopsis of your standpoint at this. And, we're not the end of it, right? We're never at the end of something. It's always evolving and progressing. Like, from your current perspective, this whole experiment, what has it led you to? Where are you now? How is reflecting on that whole experiment? As scary as it was, and it's still ongoing, like there's always challenges. What would you say? Like, yeah, I make the decision, and this is how I feel about it now, and this is what it taught me, or this is what it gave me, or this is what it took away from me.
All that kind of stuff. I think I was ready to start my business in October of 22, maybe earlier than that. And it wasn't the right energy. And so, you mentioned that earlier. The unpacking process, as I got to spend time with myself and figure out, self-care isn't self-love. Being at Disney isn't all, looking at the beautiful mountain, as you put it. Like, looking at the Magic Kingdom every day and going was great. It definitely sustain you. You can live in presence of that. You notice things you've noticed before. But if you're not in that joy vibration, the next time you notice it, it carries less weight, and it carries less weight. Like, even the stuff that you really enjoy, after a while, you're noticing, okay, why is it dimming? And it's like, oh, it's me, it's dimming. And I think at some point along in this journey, the skeletons come out of the closet, or the gremlins come out of your
It's like
out of
it's like
your
your
picture.
way to the Magic Kingdom becomes your commute to work, sort of, right? You do it every day, so you start doing it on autopilot. When I was living in this place with the mountain, I would notice that I go skiing and I feel horrible. And I'm like, why do I feel horrible? Because I'm shooting myself. I'm making myself go ski even though I'm
Yeah.
exhausted and
I
I don't feel like it, but I feel like I should because I'm gonna go and do the thing.
Yeah, I fought that really hard because being at Disney has always been the place that I escaped to,
Mhm.
and and flipped from the I know I'm going to go see butterflies to now I'm going to enjoy them when they show up. Like, that was what vacations were for me. And I had a couple of timeshares, and we go for so we visited probably a month a year. Like, I spent all 4 weeks. We would just drive down, like, as a family. So we were just, the reason I moved here was because all of that was established. And I made it a point to say, I'm not going to turn this into my commute.
Mm.
Like, I was like, It's not going
Yeah.
to be. I'm going to go when I'm aligned." And I would just notice that I wouldn't go because there were other things that came up. And it's like, because I was doing this work, it's like, oh, I get to sit with that. Oh, what's here? I'm feeling it like a victim again. Okay, let's sit with victim for a day. And now let's sit with victim for a day and go to a theme park and see what happens. You know, let's sit with a victim today, when you go pick up your kids, and, like, can you be in that feeling terrible and yet hold joy and space and ground for your kids so that you don't project it on them. And then what happened there was that with the kids, they would start opening up, and they would start sharing their energetic expression of their need to heal. And so I was like drawing their negativity, and we
Mhm.
were just kind of healing it together. And that became more important than being in joy. And we could go have the joy whenever we wanted to. So we weren't far from it. So
Yeah.
just being in the shadow of joy while you're doing the work was just enough to provide that. I mean, Dark Night of the Soul moment, you just run out of gas, and then you're like, who am I? And you see yourself, and you step into that. And even with all of this, at one point, I had one of those doing this work, because there's just a lot of work to do, to your point of, you know, so what did I learn from that? Um, your experience is really the energetic framework you're operating from. It's and when you accept that, that allows it through. When you deny it, that pushes it back into the body, somatically, and into your experience, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I think the main point why I wanted to do this and talk about this publicly is because I think it's so important to, like, because I need those reminders all the time, and I think we all need those reminders, um that, trust your timing and trust yourself, and then there's a timing to everything, and that sometimes we really just need to take that time. I haven't spoken to this at the beginning, but this is really the core of the whole message that I want to transmit with this whole conversation and this whole experience that I get to share about, is that we get to trust. I just got this tattoo like a few weeks ago. It says trust, and it's for like very luckily in my middle finger. I only realized in the middle of the tattoo appointment and I was like, maybe it's not the best finger to have this on. So I'm like, trust, guys. And they're like, what do you
just put it right up to the camera and like
look at this, guys. So anyway, I got this tattooed because for me, the trust, like, and I'm very fortunate that I have all this travel background especially when I had no money. Like I was a student, I had no money, and I decided I wanted to travel. And I did it with like couch surfing and like, catching rides with people and like staying with friends of friends and strangers and like, and I would like do things like I would volunteer and become an au pair and just find all these ways. But like sometimes like you don't have the money for a hotel or for the train and when it's expensive and you need to get somewhere or like you need a place to stay and you don't know where, you don't know how. But you just like trust that you're gonna be fine. And I was always fine. Like everything always ended up sorting itself out. And so I learned that trust, but like, of course, like there's always layers to it, right? And like what happened to me last April, or like not April, in the summer when I realized like it's been a few months already and I haven't done anything for my business. I don't even know what my business is. I don't even know if I can ever start it. I don't even know if I can ever be that person who builds, who starts their own business and becomes their own brand and like puts themselves out there and like starts selling themselves like on social media and be like, hi, like look at me, I'm Claire and I'm gonna change your life because I'm a coach, like pay me money. Like I was like, I don't know if I can ever do that, right? And I quit my job and now I have no income and now I have all these travels come up and all these, things that I need to pay for. Like it's insane. It's insane, right? Like it's like, how do you trust that? And it's like, and I had no timeline for anything. And then I was like, oh gosh, like if I don't start now, then in September I'm traveling to the US and then in October I'm going to Colombia and then I'm gonna be in Colombia until like December. It's like, well, that's the whole year. And like, I don't think I'm gonna work on much when I'm traveling, having all these experiences and all that. So I was like, I have no idea where the money's gonna come from because I'm like very clear that I'm not going back to a 9 to 5. I can't. I'm gonna be traveling anyways. Like, and like traveling's expensive. Like, where's the money gonna come from? But like, I guess luckily because then I was sitting in that space for so long, so I kind of normalized it. I was like, there's still money on my account. Like I know there's money. I don't have to worry about it. I can go on and do the thing that I'm doing. And so I just kept doing it and like the time just kept flying by, right? And like, it became weeks and months and I sort of like I just sort of normalized it that like, yeah, like I'm living off my savings, right? And sometimes I'll be like, maybe I should check my bank account. Like maybe I'm running out of money. It's like, I don't know. Like, what does it even mean to be running out of money? Like, how much money do I need? Like, I'm in Colombia. Like, it's not that expensive. Like, you know, uh, yeah, like I don't have a car. I don't, have to pay insurance or things like that. So it's kind of like, well, this is what I'm doing and I'm still waiting. And like like I let go of the pressure at some point. Like I let go of the timeline or like there was no deadline. So I just sort of let it go and I just kept flowing. And something like, well, like a few months have gone by. But what happened was, this is what I trusted, and I had no idea how and when and what would happen and how it would come. But I was like, something's gonna come. It's gonna come. Like the time's gonna come. And the time has come. Like I haven't planned for it, but like I went to Colombia at the end of October and I met somebody, at like a retreat I did. And then one day we just connected over a call to just discuss like our experiences, how we were integrating the process that we went through. And all of a sudden, this person's like out of the blue, we're just talking about our experiences and our difficulties and what we're currently dealing with. And out of the blue, this person's like, would you come here to Canada and host retreats for women? And I'm like, that came out of nowhere. Like I've never done that, but like, sure I would. Like I always knew I would do retreats, but I thought that was something I would do like way in the future when I'm already established. I have a business, like I have loads of experience, like I'm successful at like, leading group containers online. And like then I would do something like that. But I was like, sure I would. And then he's like, do you have a website, Claire? People are asking me. I've been saying I need a website for 3 years now. I need a website. Like I need it like months ago, right? And I just started working on that website that I've been postponing for like 3, 4 years, right? So you start working on that website and then you're like, okay, we need to really like put the information online. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put the information online. Now we need to start selling. I'm like, okay, we're selling retreats.
can I
Yeah.
bring something through real quick? So what's beautiful about that is if you think of it if you were on a path and a plan and a progress and a push towards something, and something like that came up, that it was something you've always wanted to do, it's something you would have said no to. But because you're in the position of living with the freedom mindset you're living with, when it shows up, you said yes to it.
Mhm.
Like, see how it's the butterfly thing, but it's flipped. It's like you're living in the moment, and this opportunity comes by. So many of us miss opportunities in life, and they go by. We watch them go by, and we say we can't do that because, and we can't do that because we're trapped in something we don't want to be trapped in, and then we build regret and all that other stuff in our system because we didn't do the thing. I just wanted to throw that
Yeah.
in there.
Thank you so much for bringing that in. Yeah, absolutely. It's both, right? On one hand, some people who are stuck in that and they're like, yes, and not right now. And on the other hand, it's like, can you trust that if you fully surrender and you like let go of the timing and you do the scary thing when you don't know what's coming and when it's coming and how it's coming and if it's coming, can you trust that it's coming when it needs to, right? And yeah, like long story short, I sold 4 retreats already. I haven't like, like I haven't even done a launch or anything. Like my friend is literally selling them for me.
And you get to do retreats.
And I get to do retreats and it's like it's scary, right? And I'm like, wait, it's like, and then now I get to work on all my beliefs. It's like I have all these beliefs. It's like it doesn't get to be that easy. Like I need to do a lot of marketing. I need to sell harder. Like it's not perfect. I just started my website. It's super basic. It's not professional. Blah blah blah. Like blah 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 blah. And it's like it doesn't get to be that easy. Period. Right? Selling is hard. Marketing is hard. I don't like marketing. I don't like selling. I don't want to do it. Where are the people? All these beliefs. There's no people who are ready to invest in themselves. There's no people who are ready to invest in me, and like all these stories. And it's like, I'm just like sitting here and just like watch these beliefs not be true. And like, that's my biggest work right now. It's like, can you change your beliefs? Because if you keep believing that, then you're going to stop it. It's not going to happen because you're literally telling the universe, like, sorry, it's not possible. So I'm not ready to see this happen to me because it's not possible. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but it's like really just bringing it back
So
to
when you show up for yourself, what happens? There's like two things that can happen. Curveballs that show you what you need to overcome, and situations where you can show up differently and receive differently. Like for me, having an appendicitis and going in and being like, "Oh, I'm being wheeled in. I may not wake up," and not something really I considered. Whenever they put you under, you never know what's in there. Never know what they're going to find. I know somebody who had terrible experiences with, and people sometimes don't make it back from that. I had it knowing that I was going to be fine, so that made it easier to be with that. And I think having done this work made that a completely different experience. Where I was energetically influential with people that light workers, and have a totally different perspective of the hospital, of like a hospital setting, having just the way I interacted with them. It wasn't from the mindset, it wasn't worry, it wasn't fear, it wasn't anything. It was a knowing and a trust that I was going to be okay, having done this work and feeling like this is here to show me something. What can I receive? That idea of what can you receive when when you normally feel like something happened to me, and you might spend 3 months after doing the work to undo what happened to you, the trauma or whatever. Or, why not receive what's there and really be like, okay, what's here for me to learn? Then I don't store anything. I didn't store anything from that experience. And I had held presence for my daughter, who was like, holy crap. Like, I had to call her at school and say, Dad's going to the emergency room and you're going to sleep over with your friend.
wow.
Like, that kind of stuff is like, because I have a responsibility to a young child who gets to turn into an adult someday, and I didn't want to be the trauma. And so I'm starting to think like, okay, maybe I need to keep myself healthier, and well, let's just be with what's here and be healthy and come out the other side, and then hold space for her and her worry, because I could tell she's like rattled by, like, I could have
Yeah,
lost
just
my
like
dad, like I'm her everything. So holding space for that and being in the space where I could have lost me, I don't know. Um, Being with that was a lot. And but because of the mindset and awareness space that I'm in, you know, that built up trust that I can be with almost anything at this point. I can be with that. And then let's challenge it and flip flop. And my daughter calls me from school, and I knew instantly that like she was afraid of her body's own reaction to the way she was feeling. I could just feel it. And, follow that intuition, took her to a doctor. And it's like, when you call a service and they don't call you back and you're like, how am I going to get the healthcare I need type of situation? Or like, I guess not in America, there's a lot of times you'll get on a list, you might not get care right away. Um, I mean, I went to a doctor's office and they're like, we don't have any openings and we don't think that people will see you based on the conditions that she's showing up, which were, she just had like a sore throat she couldn't swallow type of thing. And I was like, I know there's something
Yeah.
much more complicated than that.
Yeah.
And so there was an appointment 45 minutes later at another place across town that they were affiliated with, and they sent us there. We walked right in, got all the things, and they're like, her blood sugar's 400 and she has a massive amount of ketones in her urine. She's
Something you did not expect at all at that point.
it's like diabetic coma is imminent. Like, go to the ER. And they're expecting you. Don't drive home. Don't pick up, anything. Just drive over there. And holding space for that was, again, like at the universe saying, are you ready? Like, what you could handle. What could you sit with? And rather than just be, in a state of constant fight or flight and terror and response, like I was for most of my my marriage, because that's just the way things presented itself. Um, I found another way to just be with what is, and that's how I think, as coaches, we can powerfully change the world, is to get people to really be with what is and be okay with it and not store trauma and hold space for themselves and others, and look at self-care as not narcissism and self-love as beyond just going to a Bora Bora for the 17th time. I was reading somebody's post on that. Like, that's not what it's about. There's beauty everywhere. And like, traveling is beautiful, and seeing those places and showing the possibility and showing the joy and channeling joy through you. And like, that's why there are these beautiful places on earth to visit. Can you be a vessel for that joy? Can you transmit that at that frequency and help people to be with it when they hate their neighbor, to not act out in violence because they know how to find joy from that place? Like, this is really how we can powerfully shift and change the world.
Mhm. So beautiful. Thank you for that transmission, Dan. I just really want to highlight that. Dad mentioned ending up in the hospital twice, one for himself, one for his daughter. Both situations happened the first 2 months of this year, right? And totally unexpectedly, totally out of the blue, like totally unprepared for it. Single dad. And I know that Dan has had some other challenging experiences in the past months with his children. For me, it's kind of difficult to relate to because I don't have children. I can only imagine the amount of responsibility, care, and worry and all that. It's just so real and so present for parents. And to be in that situation when you're going through all these crazy experiences, you're worried for your kids and you're worried for yourself and you're worried about money. I imagine there must be all these parts screaming at you like you're irresponsible, you have kids to feed, and you're spending all this money. This is crazy.
How am I going to pay these bills? Like, literally, I'm running this experiment. I'm in the last year of it. I was like, well, how many less months do I have with these two $8,000 bills? It's like, well, two less months now. And in the process of claiming that, like, gifts happen. Like, there were some things that they did at the hospital that they've never done before. So, to try to help us out.
Yeah. And they did help you, right?
Yeah, there was one situation where the social worker said, I've been here 7 years and I've never seen them work this hard for the two of you.
Incredible. Beautiful. I just really want to point to, for everybody listening, this amount of stuff that has been going on through then, and just the grace and the stability and the peace and the calm and the love for the process and the patience for himself and the process that he's speaking with right now. It's not just right now. The situation that he's describing happened like what, a week ago? He's telling me what happened the day after. The amount of peace and grace, patience, and just acceptance of the situation. Wow. I'd love to have a dad like you, somebody who's just that grounded and stable. It's honestly the most helpful thing in a parent or in a friend or in a spouse, to just have somebody just be calm in a crazy situation like that. And it can feel odd because we're not supposed to be calm right now. Like, we're supposed to be worried. I mean, it has its place, right? When you're worried, you're sort of thinking about solutions and you're trying to get things sorted. If you see somebody calm in that situation, you're like, how can you be calm? That's not right. You need to worry, because like worry has its place. It's supposed to get you in a place of, trying to figure things out and think out of the box and problem solving. But honestly, that state of worry, it's not really helpful, especially if somebody else is worrying, especially if it's a child. If you can hold stable ground for them and just really support them in the situation, that can be really helpful and magical. And when you allow to, again, it's that same thing, that same state that we were talking about, right? With my experience of being ready for the opportunity, receiving the opportunity when I was really in a relaxed state, or Dan with his experiences of, he was in the hospital and he's like, challenge, I can get these medicine. And they're like, well, this is not a usual situation, but like, we're going to help you out, because he wasn't terrified, he wasn't frustrated, he wasn't scared, he wasn't screaming at them, he wasn't defending himself, he wasn't like acting out, right? He was just like in peace and calm and just like, here, this is the situation, like this is yeah.
Situation is literally, this bill will not get paid. So if you'd like money, it's up to you to find some other way to fund it. It's just kind of the way I left it. What supplies? And I'm like, I don't have it. So, let's work something out, put it on a payment plan or whatever it needs to be. And then they just made the decision to file it with the insurance. It didn't file. They filed 11 or 13 things this way or that way. And they found a grant to cover the rest. And they're like, okay, you can go home. So it's like, and I think they just understood that you're going home with a new life it's like a lifetime medical need.
Yeah.
Like, this will be a monthly cost for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
She has a pancreas that doesn't produce insulin. So you have to have insulin to process the food that you eat, and you have to eat to survive. So it's,
Yeah.
I guess if there's a positive there, that just is a reality that's easy to absorb. It just is. You can't kind of sugarcoat it, pardon the pun, but you holding space for it. We're both going through the same thing, but that doesn't mean that we both have our same emotions in it and the same way. So, and that was her calling to say that she didn't bring her stick to poke her finger. So that they do this thing at lunch. So they got a half an hour window. She didn't bring the poking device, so they're not able to take her insulin or do her finger pricking. So just give her the regular dose, have her eat lunch, and then, it's gonna be like this sort of for the rest of, there'll be challenges. It's just a new set of challenges, and can you be with it? Like, I'm not gonna yell at the nurse and say just do this or just do that or whatever. It's it's mainly about letting her know it'll be okay, and that trust thing. Like, each little thing that happens that's you call a negative is an opportunity to build trust that, the universe or your dad or, whoever, whatever caretaker situation you're in, it's an opportunity to show that, you can trust and that it's going to be okay. Even when it's not okay, it's still okay. That's the other thing to sit with.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably, Dan. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your beautiful reflections. Like I said, I think it's so valuable. Like, I feel like we're running the same experiments and doing sort of the same thing in different ways. We're in different stages in our lives, obviously in different situations, but at the end, it's all the same. That trust and that patience to like sit with what is right now, process my own emotion, find ground, see how I can create more space in this situation for me and for others. Be patient and see what comes up. It's a lesson that we can use in our everyday lives, in every situation, and in relationships of all sorts. So hope this has been valuable for people. Let us know if you have any questions for me and for Dan. And hopefully we'll get to do this again.
Yeah, it'd be great. I'd really appreciate connecting with your story again.
That's it for now, my friends. Thank you for tuning in. If this conversation had you curious and wondering if and how you too could tap into these states of tranquility, groundedness, safety, trusting the process, if you would like to live a life of calmness and stability and just knowing that you are and you will be taken care of, then you are most welcome to reach out to me, send me a message on Instagram, send me an email. We can have a chat about the work that I do with my clients and how I could help you. Otherwise, I hope you found value in this conversation. Have a good day, and I will see you in the next episode.